Hey everybody, Teching here. I didn't know what to put next to Barry in this video, so here's the 5-headed dragon from Yu-Gi-Oh! Totally not Tiamat from D&D. No, absolutely not. Original design, 100% right here. And hey, it does kind of fit, because we did see dragons in the last chapter. We had that flashback to Punk Hazard, and there was a little dragon hanging out next to Vegapunk, and we saw another shadowy figure behind the gates of Punk Hazard, which some people have actually brought up that might have not have been a dragon, that might have been one of the numbers, because remember, all of the numbers came from Punk Hazard as well. There was a lot of crazy experiments going on in Punk Hazard. Do you remember that scene? Nobody really ever talks about it. Like, occasionally I see it, but like, remember that scene when I think it was like Nami and Chopper and everybody were like running through Punk Hazard in the lab, and they stumble upon that giant freezer room, then just a bunch of frozen giants like inside of this room, and it's just like, oh man, this is freaky. You know, some weird stuff going on, some weird Frankenstein stuff going on in Punk Hazard. Okay, so hope to see more of that at some point. But at any rate, okay, last chapter, in a lot of ways, really seemed to set up the finale for Egghead. I shouldn't say set up the finale, because the finale was kind of beginning to get set up, I think, as soon as Vegapunk's message began to air. I think when the Gorosei crashed down on the island, that was like, we are in the climax of the arc now. the Gorosei are here, and they're giant yokai monsters. It's like, okay. What I mean is, maybe next couple of chapters, we're done with Egghead, really, because when you start looking at all the things we have to wrap up in a nice little bow, seems like we're getting there, okay? So one of the major things is we got to eliminate the Gorosei, or at least get the Gorosei off of the Straw Hats' backs so they can actually escape, okay? Well, there's 5 of them on the island. Marcus Mars, I guess, is dealt with. He's shot into the stratosphere, hanging out on the moon right now with Eneru. Cut to the moon, where Marcus gets slammed into it, and Eneru walks out, and he's like, who dares destroy my fairy Vath? And then, like, a giant bird comes out and is like, who are you? I am God. It's like, me too. And then at that point, either Marcus Mars and Eneru become besties, or they're just having an epic war of fate-level proportions on the moon right now. And Eneru brings out his automata army and goes into Raiga mode or something. Either way, Marcus Mars is dealt with for the moment, I suppose. Then we have Ethan, who is at a point-blank blast from Atlas in the last chapter. I wonder if all the Vegapunks have a self-destruct mechanism, or just Atlas. She does represent violence. So I guess when Vegapunk was designing all of the satellites, he's like, I'm gonna give Atlas the nuclear core. Everybody else doesn't. I mean, I guess Pythagoras kind of blew up when his face got crushed. He did explode, so I suppose he has that as well. The only Vegapunks left right now are York and Lilith, and it really does seem that York is going to stick around with the government. You know, she believes she's going to be made a Tenryubito, but after this whole incident on Egghead, like, York's messed up a few times. I mean, yeah, she was like, oh wait, I finally figured out where the Denden Mushi is. You guys need to attack the giant. Oh no, guys, you can't just attack the giant. You like turned off the monitor. You got to turn off the computer to actually stop the message. Yeah, I don't think that York, after this is all said and done, is going to be given an award. I don't think they're going to bring her back to Marijwa and the Gorosei are going to be there. It's like, you know what, York, congratulations. You did it. You're made an honorary Tenryubito. Here's your stupid spacesuit outfit and bubble helmet. You know, honestly, I could see York getting knocked out at some point and having a dream fantasy where she is made a Tenryubito, and then the next scene is you see her waking up in a dark, dingy lit lab in Marijwa chained to a radiator, and she's like, okay, guess I gotta get back to work. You know, she's gonna be like Jessie in the 5th season of Breaking Bad, alright? That's the way it's gonna go with York. Then we also have Lilith, who may have had her connection to Punk Records, like, permanently severed by Atlas. Like, she might have literally, like, ripped out the wires that connect her to Punk Records so that York and everybody else assumes that she's dead. So Lilith actually has a very interesting perspective right now. As long as the Gorosei do not physically see her, like, up and moving around, they're assuming she's dead. And they assume that all of the Vegapunks except for York are dead. Then Lilith can continue to exist and do, you know, science things and further the cause and research and all that Vegapunk set out to do, albeit with a little bit more of an evil streak, because Lilith does, you know, it's the end of the day, you know, I don't know if Oda was doing that as sort of like a red herring kind of situation, but back when we were trying to figure out who the traitor was, you'd assume the one that would be the most likely would be Lilith, who literally embodies the evil of Vegapunk. But no, Lilith actually pretty cool. Turns out siphoning off all of your greed and desire into another body, that was the thing that really did it. I guess, you know, Oda didn't really follow the philosophy of Full Metal Alchemist with, like, greed isn't always bad. Well, York is bad to the bone, I tell ya. All right, so anyway, Lilith is going to survive, and people are already saying she's going to be the next Straw Hat, so we cannot have the end of a One Piece arc without having that, you know, option at some point. Like, are we gonna option this new Straw Hat, you know? At the end of Whole Cake, it was Carrot's gonna join. At the end of Wano, it was Yamato's going to join. At the end of Egghead, it's Lilith's going to join. So that is really a hallmark when an arc is reaching its apex, its finale. You know, okay, so we have that. Check that box. We got that. Vegapunk's message really does seem like it's reaching its conclusion. My proof of this is at the end of the chapter when Vegapunk says, this is the conclusion of the message. So I'm going to assume that the next chapter is maybe a couple more lines of Vegapunk. He's going to wrap all of this up. Now, he is a gentleman after all. He is a scientist. So he'll be like, oh, Quasar, well, that was my thoughts on things. Hope you enjoyed this message. Signing out. You know, like that's, you know, Vegapunk is the first YouTuber, essentially. So the last thing Vegapunk says, let me just reiterate this because this is important. I feel like this is going to be a thing that's going to be discussed for a while. 25 years ago, I'm sorry, they were pirates. 25 years ago, Goldie Roger and his pirate crew completed an unprecedented tour of the entire world, and what he and his crew heard were likely the purest voices of the past. In conclusion, as I'm sure you've all surmised by now, my view of our future is thus. Okay, so I don't know if that's implying like Vegapunk is like all that stuff I've explained to you up until now, that was my view for the future, or there's going to be a little bit more to it is like, oh, my view for the future is I think Vegapunk's going to round this all about with a positive message for humanity, because the whole premise of this is I'm recording this message after, you know, I die, people are going to learn about it, right? So Vegapunk might be like, listen, despite all this stuff I've told you in this message with the world flooding and this is going to happen again and the ancient weapons are around and this whole war with the world government and the ancient kingdom is still waging on 900 years after the fact, despite all of that stuff that might freak a lot of people out, I do have hope for humanity. I have hope that humanity will persevere through this trial because I know there's people out there that are fighting the good fight. Might be referring to the Straw Hats, even though when he was recording this message, he didn't actually meet the Straw Hats yet. But he might also be referring to Dragon's Revolution, might be something like that. He might have a message like, everything will, I hope, be okay, Quasar. You know, it's something along those lines, right? I think that's how Vegapunk's going to end it out. He doesn't want to end it on a downer. You know, that was like various points of the message. He apologizes for the creation of the Mother Flame and like, oh my god, this led to the destruction of Lelucia probably, and it was, oh no, but I think he's going to end it on a light note, okay? So that's winding down. As for the other Gorosei, so, you know, Ethan is, well, he is regenerating right now. Honestly, it doesn't really seem like it should take that long for the regeneration process because even when Atlas exploded, we still saw like half of Ethan's face was already kind of reforming. We see it in the last panel. It doesn't really seem like it's going to be that long for Ethan to regenerate and get back down there. So, but it could all tie into what Emeth is about to do, the Iron Giant. So he says, oh, I'm rusting apart. Joy Boy, you said when the time is right, I think this counts. I'm going to use it, okay? This is the official translation I'm reading, a little bit different from the first translation where it was more of like the Iron Giant speaking kind of to Joy Boy. So this is what I mean by purest voices of the past. It really makes me wonder if the voices of all things is like Joy Boy's literal voice from the past. You know, via the Toki Toki no Mi, or maybe just, we understand, we already kind of knew that Roger was able to hear the voices from, like, objects. Like, Roger went up to the poneglyph on Skypiea, the one that talks about the location of Poseidon, right? And even without Odin reading it for him, Odin actually deciphering what the poneglyph said, Roger just kind of, like, touched the poneglyph and was just kind of like, Yarg, matey! It talks about a great weapon, doesn't it? Right? Wouldn't it be interesting if Might have been Joy Boy's ability, or might have had something to do with hockey, not sure. What if he could embody his voice into an object, and then a future person that could hear the voices of all things, like Roger or Luffy, can then hear it. And Emeth is a good example of this, because Emeth, he has a conscience, but he's also a robot. He was honestly probably built off of an assembly line, okay? We don't know the whole story with Emeth. He could have been a regular robot. He could have been one of thousands of robot soldiers, and something happened with Joy Boy where he was given a soul or something like that. But wouldn't that be fascinating, where every person that forges the poneglyphs etches a little bit of their own soul or their voice into said poneglyph? And not everybody can hear it. Only very few, like Roger and Luffy. Odin could hear the voices as well. So it could have been something like that along those lines, right? Might also have something to do with Pudding's ability and the Third Eye tribe and things like that. It's the idea that, the best way I can describe it is in Hunter x Hunter with Nen, how, if you're a genius with Nen and you make an object, let's say I'm a Nen genius and I'm a carpenter and I make a table. Some of my soul or my aura is on the table forever now and can be sensed hundreds of years later. It might be something like that with the poneglyphs and the voices of all things, okay? So in the chapter review, I was talking about it being Joy Boy was communicating through the past via the Toki Toki no Mi or something. So maybe it's not necessarily that, but it's the voice of all things that carries through the centuries in other ways. Whoever finds this poneglyph, I want them to hear this voice. Hell, when the Straw Hats reach Laughtail and they find the Rio poneglyphs and they all come together, and here's the Void Century history. Here it is. You might have a moment where Robin is going to read the Rio poneglyphs and tell the Straw Hats she can read it as a scholar, but then Luffy might be ooh, there's a weird voice coming from this place. What's going on? And then he hears things, right? Now, this isn't perfect because, Zunisha is clearly a living being. And also, once again, Luffy is the only one that can hear the voice of Zunisha. And Momonosuke as well. He could hear it as well. But, yeah, only a few people that can hear the voices of all things can understand Zunisha. So not the exact same thing, but an interesting thought. So I think Emeth is going to explode because really it's kind of been shown here that Emeth is rusting apart and falling apart already. And in the last chapter, Peter just chomped a big chunk out of Emeth, a big entire left arm and a good chunk of his chest, and his shoulders all gone now, and he's billowing smoke. And we've also seen that Emeth can only stay active while there's somebody in gear 5th jumping around, the sun energy empowering him. So when Luffy leaves or goes out of gear 5th, he's not going to be able to move anymore. So while it would be really cool for Emeth and Luffy to sit down and talk about Joy Boy and learn stuff about the past, and that would be great for Robin and everything, I just don't think that's going to happen. So Emmeth's last mission that he was given by Joy Boy is going to be carried out here, okay? Which is good, because I feel like Emeth, I don't know how conscious he was during when he was inactive in the junk heap. It's implied that he wasn't. Oh god, that's terrifying though. It's locked-in syndrome. Can you imagine? He was just, Joy Boy, I wanted to help you, but I'm a rusted pile of scrap. I can't move. Where are you? It's scary. It's dark. And then all of a sudden, a beacon of light when Luffy goes gear 5th, and he can finally move again. So if Emeth's ultimate, Hail Mary pass is, go the nuke maneuver and just obliterate everything around him, I think this would be the time to use that, okay? It would definitely take out Peter and Top Man because they're right in front of him. Well, when I say take out, I don't mean kill permanently. I mean take out for a nice dinner and a movie on the town, nice night on the town. The Gorosei, okay, unironically, the Gorosei's dating life is probably not great. All right, they've been stuck in a castle for the last 900 years probably. They're just hanging out in that room, in the room of authority. It's got to be getting kind of boring every now and then, Maybe every once in a while Peter seems the one that would go out clubbing the most, but he's just I want to go to a bar, and they're no, we got to stay here and listen to the immortal Eam. It's okay, whatever. But anyway, no, Emeth's gonna blow, okay? And then that Ethan might also regenerate and shoot down to the shore to I'll stop them too, and he also gets taken up in the blast. Hell, you could even have a scene, because look, Marcus got blasted a far, distance away. I get it. But, like, he can fly and he can regenerate, all right? Even if you want to say something absurd and Marcus got shot 1,000 miles away, which I think is kind of crazy, but it is anime after all. It is manga. Let's say he got blasted 1,000 miles away into the stratosphere. He should be able to heal from that and rocket back pretty damn quickly, all right? He's this, like, eldritch bird thing. He'd be like, ah! And then just shoot himself back, all right? So you could have a moment where Ethan's coming down, and then Marcus is shooting back, and right when they're all kind of approaching the shore is when Emeth is just detonation, boom, and then they all get caught in the explosion. The explosion could also maybe serve to, like, just like in the last chapter, how Atlas's explosion propelled the Sunny a little bit further so it could reach the shore. You could have the exact same thing happen here, pushing the Great Eric away on this giant wave. And then, the Sunny will probably land on the Great Eric, so that Sunny will be okay. And then maybe Jinbei has to use his helmsmanship skills to help with the Great Eric, steer that on top of a giant tsunami as it's riding on this explosion or whatever. But they might be able to get away from that. Now, Saturn is on the deck of the Great Eric, which is alarming. That's a problem. We didn't see him get off of it. He was still on it. He landed. So they have to knock him away, which people have been saying the Sunny might actually land like right on top of Saturn's head, and that might not knock him off. And this would actually be a really great scene if they knock off Saturn, which I think they should be able to do. Luffy's there, Frankie, Sanji, all the giants are there. The Straw Hats are about to arrive. They should be able to just, like they did with Marcus, knock off Saturn. They knock him off. He lands in the water, and they're like, whoa, we did it. We stopped him. And then he bubbles up out of the water. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, no, the water doesn't stop him. And then Emeth detonates, and so it's like, oh, no, we're dead. It's like, okay, well, we were saved today. Some people have brought up, well, maybe Saturn is hurt by the water because we see him, like, spider crawling up the side of Peter in order to get some airtime to get over to the Great Eric. That doesn't really prove that, him falling in the water isn't a bad thing. It just means that maybe he can't fly. I was thinking he could do a fun thing with the spider legs and he could, like, use them like a propeller and fly around like a UFO. I guess that's not the case. I think that, Saturn was just, crawling up Peter as a ramp and then jumping off of Peter onto the Great Eric. That was the only way he could get over there. I don't think he could fly. Okay, we've seen Ethan be able to fly or use like a variation of like Geppo, and Marcus can obviously fly. We haven't seen Peter fly. We haven't seen the pig fly. So maybe some of the Gorosei can and some of them can't, okay? Or maybe in their human forms they could use Geppo and stuff. I'm not really sure. We're kind of a lot of mysteries with the Gorosei still, but I honestly think falling in the water is not going to kill them. I don't think it's going to be that simple. There's another video I'm going to talk about involving like more of like at the beginning of this chapter with Clover and that story about the Sword of Light. Like, we'll go into that more. But yeah, for right now, though, I think that's how the Gorosei are going to be dealt with. Lilith's on the ship. York's going to be with the Gorosei as well, and going to go with them. And the detonation is going to basically wipe out Egghead, which is going to be unfortunate. Maybe not all of it, because like Punk Records is still there. So it's like, is it going to destroy Punk Records and Vegapunk will be dead for good? That might be what Oda's going for here at the very least. Like, okay, York still lives on, and York, even separate from Punk Records, is still a Vegapunk, but when it comes to all of the creations on Egghead, it just gets destroyed. It would also be a great parallel to Punk Hazard, because the same thing happened on Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard had a bunch of the inventions, a bunch of stuff Vegapunk created, and then Caesar set off a nuke and wiped it all out. Same thing happens again with Egghead, which is setting things back a little bit, but once everything is said and done, as in once the story concludes and the Gorosei are dealt with and the Tenryubito are dealt with and there's massive reform in the world government and Dragon's Revolution carries out and York is taken care of, whatever that leads to. If Lilith is still around, then we still have a Vegapunk. We still have a Vegapunk. Question, though, is if the Punk Records is destroyed, that was kind of the whole point of the internet, connect everybody to Punk Records. So maybe Punk Records will survive. Maybe the hangar it's in can survive a nuke attack. Maybe it could. Vegapunk probably built it pretty reinforced, I would assume. So a couple of questions left, but I honestly think, like, next chapter or the one after that. And the next chapter is in celebration of the 27th anniversary of One Piece. So this would be probably a good time to have everything land and then a big boom as take it out with a bang, as it were, as the Great Eric sails for Elbaf, as the Straw Hats all escaped. Robin is still listening to the message as it concludes. And then, yeah, maybe we could have one more chapter after that. Like, assuming the next chapter, which I'm going to throw it out there right now, the next chapter is going to end with a giant boom. The chapter after that might be like the surrounding wreckage. It might be like the burned out wreckage of Egghead. Everybody looking around just like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, like what survived and what didn't, kind of thing. And then maybe one of the vice admirals, maybe like Hound or somebody, was like, is there anyone still alive over there? And then the Gorosei are like they're regenerating, like, oh God, you know. And the Gorosei are like, okay, it's on now. All right. So anyway, that's that. Just wanted to kind of cover a bunch of different points from the chapter and see where we're going from here. But I'll talk a little bit more about Clover next time and his name and everything, where that goes. So thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching signing out. Go to that end screen.